It's an honor to be in a room with the future civic leaders of the region I've lived in my entire life. I love it here and I have no intention of leaving, so you guys better not screw it up. As I mentioned, I currently work as a land economics consultant, providing market analysis and policy advice to both private sector and public sector entities involved in building our region. So I spend lots of time talking about the issue in quite technical, analytical language, but that gets boring after a while, so I'm going to be a bit more bombastic than I probably should today. One of my main passions is politics, and specifically civic politics. I was quite strange as a high school student. I would spend hours watching council meetings in the Tri-Cities. I had spreadsheets that tracked every contentious vote in Port Coquitlam and Coquitlam. And what appealed to me about civic politics, both then and now, is that it has a much more direct effect on people's lives than other levels of government. You can essentially replace the federal government with a series of check-writing formulas for shuffling money around between various jurisdictions and various agencies, but not so with local government. So what I want everyone here to understand is just how much power civic officials have over the lives of your fellow citizens if you're successful in what I think is your mission of getting elected to public office. It is not a stretch to say that civic officials have virtually unchecked power over very, very fundamental aspects of most people's lives. Take where people live. If you look at an aerial map of Vancouver, you'll see we have a very dense downtown peninsula, as it should be, but then immediately outside it, it looks like cottage country. If you turn your attention to the extreme southeast corner, farthest from jobs or transit, you have a cluster of towers, a mini West End, on the floodplain. If you ride SkyTrain from Burnaby into Vancouver, you can very quickly tell where the suburb ends and the city starts, because the gleaming towers become 1950s single-family homes in the city. These patterns aren't a result of people making their own choices. They aren't a natural human settlement pattern. They've been dictated by holders of public office, the same public office that people here are seeking. Something as fundamental as where people can build their lives and raise their families is just out of their hands, and in yours instead. 11 people on council shuffling around hundreds of thousands like pieces on a chessboard. It's the same story when it comes to making a living. If I want to open a coffee shop or a small business to serve my neighbors, I can't do it on a nice residential street near my home. I have to go find the nearest 6-lane arterial because it's illegal to do so almost anywhere else. And then I have to hope that I'm near a stretch on that arterial where civic officials have decided a coffee shop or a small business can exist. So where people live, where they can pursue a living, these are two life-defining things that have all sorts of bearing on our living standards, health outcomes, economic opportunities, social bonds. They're just out of people's hands. They're in yours. We might as well be Sims in the world of civic officials. It gets even more strange. By tightly controlling the amount of housing that exists in Vancouver or any given municipal jurisdiction, you can even dictate whether people get to live in their city of choice or not. The details are even as strange as the big picture. Civic officials have decided that if someone lives in an apartment in Vancouver, they don't get to have the simple pleasure of a fireplace. More recently, it has been decided that apartments shouldn't even have generous windows anymore. So the simple pleasure of a corner window, if you look at new buildings coming up, that's gone as a result of decisions by civic officials. Ceiling heights are rarely above minimum standards, also as a result of policies set by civic officials. And lofts are banned. They were all built in a very brief period in the 1990s. So more likely than not, this new apartment with no fireplace, small windows, and a low ceiling will also be facing a noisy, polluted road, because that's where civic officials have decided that new housing should be. So as you can see, we're talking about near total power over very important aspects of people's lives, from which jurisdiction people can live in, all the way down to design details of their home and how late you can stay at the bar each night. What I want everyone here to think about going forward as you take steps towards running for office is this a level of power you think you should be able to hold? Are you entitled to wield this much power over other people? Should anyone be able to have this much power over other people? Governance doesn't always have to be about wielding power. Sometimes it can also be about scaling it back and containing its areas of reach. Thank you.